My name is Robert, and some highlights about me here. Not really very interesting. So yeah, I work with that company, Thoughtworks, and currently I'm here in Australia for 12 months. We started as a journey of 6 months, exploded 9 months, now it's 12 months. And honestly speaking, I thought today would be my last meetup here. It was all planned and arranged. Then everything just changed so fast. Now I'm here for a while, until end of June. So nonetheless, I will treat this as my last presentation. So I come from that country, Uganda, which is in Africa. A lot of people think Africa is a country of its own, but no. Africa actually is a huge continent of 1.2 billion people. So we are coming to the Chinese. Yeah. So, I just want us to go through a simple story journey as a tester or as a group of testers. We are always faced with so many things that sometimes you have no idea, especially if you're going to work across teams, you're going to work across different organizations. Sometimes you have no idea what you're going to land into. And also I was speaking with Scott before studying. We were talking and saying, in order for us to be relevant in this industry of information technology, we need to stay afloat. We need to stay in touch with what is going on. Because things are changing so fast that if you sleep just 10 seconds longer than you're supposed to do so, you're just going to wake up in a different world. So we things are changing all the time. How do we deal with these different kind of situations as we go along? If you roll back a few years, like in the 1950s, which I think many of us were not there, or a few of us were there, you realize that there was a financial move, regarding how can I still have a bank account, but still have the flexibility, to make purchases. And these guys sat down and thought about the whole thing, and they came up with what they call America Card, right? Bank America Card. And this was like a very tiny piece of thing that was only tied to one bank. But it brought actually so much chaos that lots of other banks started, having some sort of contract with them and signing up agreements with them. And it exploded so much that they could not actually manage it as a bank. And that's when corporations like Visa came into play. Now, that was 1950, right? Now we're in 2015. It's a different whole lot of story. Much as all this new fancy stuff was taking place and still taking place today, there is a big number of people that are actually left out. If you're talking of the disparity between the developing and the developed, there's quite a lot of things going on. So I want to just touch a little bit on what is going on in developing countries as well, and try to bring a correlation between the two in terms of technology. Where I come from, I said already 1.2 billion people, right? The biggest disadvantage for us of technology, credit and debit card is that it requires bank account. You need to somehow link this card of yours to a certain source of income, right? And if you carefully look through, there are over 2.5 billion adults who don't even know what a bank is, don't even know what a bank account is. And it has become enormously expensive, and even for the penetration of these companies to go to those areas and make impact. So what we decided to do, we said, okay, we are going to do something of our own. One thing that we are really very blessed with is we have widespread technology in terms of telecommunications. If you go to developing countries, there's lots of access to telecommunications. Like, sometimes I just weep and say, when my call is dropped here in Australia, and I'm like, really? Do you guys have like your phone you can have a call drop. I don't experience this in my country because we have well-organized structure of telecommunications, actually, entire continent, almost. So what the guy said then was like, okay, since this is what we have, and we know that over 2-point-something billion people don't have bank accounts, we are going to innovate and come up with what we call mobile banking. And what we decided to do was, the first innovation of this kind took place in a country called Kenya. And they call it M-Pesa. Pesa is a Kiswahili word which means money, M is mobile. What happens is all you need to have is a bank account on your phone, not a bank account in a bank. So the moment you have that, you have the flexibility to make payments, you have the flexibility to do withdrawals, you have the flexibility to send money to your, whatever, loved ones, 6,000 kilometers away within the continent. And this has worked so much that last year, M-Pesa alone in Kenya moved worth $23 billion of transactions. Now, if you combine the transactions that was done by MoneyGram, which is international, and Western Union, this is like not even half. So they made like twice what Western Union, which is global, and MoneyGram. So this started, the big guys are like, hey, what is going on out there? So as a result, something very interesting happened. Visa said, okay, I'm coming for you. They went and bought the entire mobile money related to the MTN mobile money. And their headquarters in South Africa. Now what they're thinking of doing is, we need to act fast. What do we do? Look at that screenshot. This is how M-Pesa looks like. And by the way, these are not super smartphones. They're just 2G phones, right? All you need to do is employ an architecture called Java card. Java card allows you to code on a SIM card. Or you can actually use architecture called USSD. What USSD does is you just go, you trigger a command by doing like *157#. It actually pulls down the menu from the remote server, could be on the cloud, and brings it to an ordinary person on a 2G phone. And you interact with your phone like you're doing a smartphone. This is too amazing. So like when you send money or whatever, you have something like this. And it's SMS based basically. So what the Visa guys did was like, okay, what do we do? We need to do something. We need to integrate with these guys. Now the banks in developing countries are actually craving to integrate with these services. Visa already, as I said, has bought these guys. And this is one of the biggest in Africa in terms of telecommunication and stuff like that. And now, we have Western Union. Right now, as I speak, I sit at the comfort of my zone, go to Western Union website, send money. Amazingly, my mother, who lives 8 kilometers away from the city, 8 hours away from the city, simply goes to the next store and gets physical money from Western Union straight into the mobile money. And utility players have also come. Now, all these are customers, right? These are consumers that are actually looking forward to integrate with the services. How about third-party developers like you and me? They're all running there. So that's where the money is following. Now, to roll back a bit, this is the previous one is something you might have not known, but now you know. Keep the thought there. Let's move to what you know. This is basically what you know, right? We have systems integrating with mainframes and legacies. This is we have the APCA, these guys who are doing DSP, trying to connect with the banks. We have the Visa, MasterCard, the transport system is all, somewhere they're connecting somewhere, the service providers and the internet, the gas, and many more. Now, the interesting part of this story of mine is that it doesn't really matter which part of the world this takes place in. We still face the same headaches, and that is contract. I'm not talking about legal contracts. I'm talking about, I'm the big guy, so all of you talk through me. But you all have different requests and requisitions. How do I meet the demand of each one of you? And that's what we're here for. Consumer-driven contracts. Looking at a very simple architecture like this, you can see I have my telecom, the banks, and the big guys here, who is a service provider. And they have these tiny contracts they expect consumers to talk to, right? And yet, what is this consumer-driven contract? This is a colleague of mine in Thoughtworks who came up with this, and I thought it was very interesting. What you say, the consumer-driven contracts are a pattern of evolving services. In consumer-driven contracts, each consumer captures their expectations of the provider in a separate contract. I just already said, just imagine you want to speak to one person and each one of you has their own needs. And this person is supposed to solve each one of your needs. How can that person have contracts with each one of you, making sure you're satisfied with what you want? Except here we're talking about technical contracts. Now, if you remember, like years ago, we used to have what we call, when you're developing a system, you have your data store there. And here, you have a big mainframe, or what we call monolith system. And then you have the front end there, where this could be C#, this could be Java, whatever you call it. But now, guys are saying, well, we love so much monolith, but we want to see that not only one person can connect to this. How can we break this up so that so many people can actually have their own freedom to do what they want? And that's when they came up with those technologies like RESTful APIs. They came up with technologies like, JSON, okay, the data store, the XML. Now all these, they are actually conformation of the different APIs and web services that you can develop. Nowadays, and a new thing called microservices, this is used all over the world. Now, as a tester, how do you position yourself to embrace what is coming? Because today they're talking about web services. Last week they just talked about, SOA, service-oriented architecture. You started Googling and reading about it. The next time Sharon is here talking about microservices, I said, what is microservices? Then before you know it, something else has come up. How do you keep yourself afloat and yet be relevant as a tester? So let's give a very simple example of how a consumer contract will look like. We know there's a cricket going on right now. And there's so many guys who are like very crazy about what is going on, like they're checking their phones. Like right now, if they are South Africans and New Zealanders, like they're on the edge, But there's so many consumers of the back end of the cricket system. I just learned today that actually there's another one called Cricket Info. I've never heard about it. So you go there, they give you like updates of everything that is going on at the same time. If you go to Google, Google also has its own way of, give you that kind of info. But imagine there's a big legacy system that is being run by the cricket organization, or whatever. I don't know. I don't even know FIFA. I don't know the body that manages cricket. Forgive me. So then, the small service consumers are saying, okay, look, we want to plug into your system and serve our own clients. One comes and says, you know what? If only I can get some sort of a flat file from you that will give me the tournament ID, which links to a tournament table somewhere, showing what kind of tournament it is. And I have a team A, because I know there are only two teams that can play at a given time, and a team B, the score of team A and team B at a given time. Then I'm okay. So these guys will come and build this kind of, whatever RESTful API, web services, whatever they're doing. And then they make it available, right, to the consumers. And then one guy becomes smarter than the other ones and says, you know what, this is not going to make me very relevant in my business. Can I have some sort of a trivia? A trivia is normally what you show the head-on between the two teams. You start going like maybe 10 years back, and it's okay. South Africa and New Zealand, what has been their history in cricket? Now, that is what is going to make the difference to the consumer. And yet, at the beginning of development, these guys didn't even think about trivia. How can they make that kind of change so that the other customers are not pissed off, but also these guys still serve the interest of this guy who thinks he's smart nonetheless? I mean, like, he has a very good point, right? Because when he does that, then people say, wow, I can even know the history of these guys. So, I want to say about how can these guys incorporate, the cost of doing that can be enormous. This is just a simple example. Just imagine a very big, a very big change. You know the kind of cost that they're going into. So at the end of the day, let's look at a very simple, you might have a file like that. That's an XML file, simple XML file. Maybe it's a request of one the consumer that, you know what I need is, the ID. When I get the ID, I can get all the info about that. This is one contract. Another contract says, you know what, return to me a JSON file in terms of objects, data objects. Because that's what I know. My boys are lazy. Their mindsets, they don't want to go into XML, but they're very good at JSON, extracting data from JSON. Another one says, you know what, I need just a flat file with fixed length. It could be a TXT file, could be, XSD file. I don't care. Now all these things are coming to the service provider. And the service provider somehow has to meet what they want. If they don't bend to one standard, then they have to improvise different ways of the contract for the consumers to be happy. But this is one headache. The next headache is there are going to be changes in the businesses for these consumers. How can the service provider still maintain the clientele by providing and improvising what each one of them needs? That's where the headache is. Not only for them, even for you, the tester. Where are you positioning yourself? Are you going to be at the side of the customer or consumer, or you are going to be in the position with the service provider? Either way you are screwed somehow. So, now look at this. Yeah. You might think of a very quick way of solving this kind of problem. The first one would be, well, let the provider decide what to do really and implement it. The request. They're the providers, right? They rely on us because we bring them more services and therefore more money in the bank, right? And let them deal with the headaches. They can do that, right? Another option is like, hey, you want to be smarter than the rest of us? Hey, why don't you do your own thing? I don't need trivia. There's no need for a trivia. You're the consumer, right? You can do your own, but either way, you see where I'm going. So, does the service provider make up their mind and modify the contract for each of the consumers, or they only do modification for the targeted consumer? Or does the consumer get so smart and do their own thing? Well and good. I'll give you some examples as we go ahead, some system we're working on where we almost had a similar kind of conflict of interest. Now, what happens here is you have this nice, architecture. Service provider here. A tester can be in either way. It can be here with the service provider to make sure everything is going on well. But if you position yourself in one of these, that's where lots of headaches are. Sometimes you have no idea they've actually changed the contract. And for you think, I don't have work. And you go there, take a cup of coffee, relax, read a few things on Google. Then the next minute, when it's really very prime for the business, things are broken down. What has happened? Oh, these guys have modified the contract. All right. So we have so many tools that you can actually use for testing. One of them is called Factor. Factor is actually one of the tools developed by some smart guys in Thoughtworks. What it does, it allows you the capability to actually test the different contracts. And you can automate it if you want. They don't encourage you to actually add this in your CI, but you can automate it in such a way that it does regression, maybe in a periodic. Because the moment you automate this, the chances that your tests are going to be failing every day. And trust me, Sharon is going to shout at those developers. Why am I having rate all the time? So you can find a way to make this like some sort of periodic, but the core testing, like the unit test, the integration test, and plus other things can be in the CI where they can check in and everything deals and deploys, provisions, stuff like that. But for this, all you need to check is the reliability of the contracts. Has anything changed? You're doing regression. From the last time you tested, what is new? Is it reliable? You know. And then here you have this part here is where you have your system in test, and this is the contract. We have other tools like, you know, you can use Tosca, you can actually use a Cucumber JVM if you're really very good at, you know, automation, where you have very nice, this smart way of, you know, maintaining your feature files, and then for each feature, for each scenario, you have your step, and then everything goes, you know, you can run it either using Selenium WebDriver, or, you know, you can choose if you use Phantom.js or Headless. It's all yours, right? But there's some guys who can actually smartly automate this using a tool like Factor and the rest. These are some of them you can use. Swagger. Swagger actually is like a plugin, but Swagger's key forte is the capability of extracting data from a JSON, where if you have like a website API design like in Java, you can actually generate you some Java notations. And then SoapUI can utilize also a plugin from Swagger, but with SoapUI you can also do XML requests and responses where you can also automate this if you want it to be automated. Then Postman is of course the Chrome plugin. You can actually install it from Chrome, and then
Sorry, just one question. What's your use of Swagger like, as far as I know, it's documentation too. So can you just explain how you use it?
Yeah, with Swagger you can download it. Oh, actually I have something I'll show you. Just keep the thought. We'll see that. Okay. Okay. Let's go next. Now, because you need to always keep in mind that these things are going to change. And sometimes you don't want Sharon to shout at you all the time. What do? There's what we call test doubles. Test double is where it's actually it's not really very new. It's a way of saying, how can I mock this? I know I have a set of parameters that I'm requesting from the contract. I send a request with these things, and then the request is consumed, and I have a response. But sometimes there are so many slow things going on. Should we have a blocker because the test is getting ready? Or can development proceed and continue while these guys are sorting out themselves? So then you create a diversion into what we call a test double. A test double can be done using some techniques. But the most important one, which people actually try to do, is this mocking. Faking, we go into the mocking. For example, if you have methods that you want like with program parameters, you can use tabbing. But with mocking, it's actually very interesting, because with mocking, you look at the whole thing that you're testing. What is your test like? What are some of the parameters that you're going to call when you send a request? And what's going to be the response when the service provider consumes the request? So what we do is we do a diversion, and there's so many tools out there actually which can allow you. Some of them are more technical, because normally the smart guys who think they're developers who do them. So they will create for you some sort of a mock here. And all you need to do is you can design your tests to first check what is in the mock if this one is down. If this one is up, there's no need to go to the mock. At the end of the day, development is continuing and nothing is being blocked. This is like a replica of this. So if there's any change here, you make sure the change is reflected in your mock as well, so that the results you're getting, the response you're getting at the contract here is actually a true reflection. So this one has to be like updated almost every day. Make sure it reflects there. Now, we've been working on some project, which is open source project. And this project is actually built on web services. This project is called MIFOS. MIFOS was one of the projects that was started by Grameen Foundation. What they realized was that since we have over 2.5 billion people who are unbanked, and there's so many organizations who are very willing to help them out, why don't we put out something that these organizations can actually use to help the financial services? So they came up with the idea of developing what they call MIFOS. You forget about the X. So MIFOS, the first original MIFOS was actually a monolithic system without nothing, it was just a whole thing, Java front end, Java back end, Java. Then 6 years down the road, they realized it was not making sense. Why? You have an organization in Kenya with completely different specs of what they want because they have different clients. And you have one in Lebanon with completely different requests that they need. And then the monolithic system was not serving the interest of the intended audience. So what they did was, they sat down and developed the next generation called MIFOS X. Now MIFOS X actually is open source, 100% open source, you can play around with it. So what they did was to break down the monolithic into small web services using RESTful APIs. And the data they're getting is actually in JSON. So all the developers are doing is, said, okay, you're in Kenya, right? You want to use the system, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. What do? Fork. Either fork or you connect to MIFOS, cloud server. They have this in their cloud server where you can just connect. So down there, they have these small web services. One is serving, let's say, client info. Another one is serving loans. Another one is serving what they call survey for poverty alleviation. So these small web services, they have extension into a form of API. Now, there's an organization where I come from, which I've been helping them, provide technical support, called FINEM. This organization, what they do, they decided to build their own front end, utilizing the RESTful APIs of MIFOS. The back end, all this you're seeing is actually in Java and Spring Framework, and they're using Gradle for build. So when they check it in the Git repository, it does the building up to the time when it is deployed. So what we decided to do was, said, okay, what are we going to do with ours? We want our thing to be unique. So we chose AngularJS, and for the test automation, which is the front-end test automation, because it has unit tests, each one of these has already unit test coverage, so we chose Protractor. Now, what we are doing basically is to call each of these APIs and consume it the way we want. Now, if there is something very unique that we want, we communicate that to MIFOS. The guy is developing the back end, and they say, okay, this is going to come maybe in the next 6 months or the next 6 weeks. So they go in the back end, they make the modification. Now, what we do here is, we check this using SOAP UI for the availability. And if there's a request we want to do before we actually consume that API, we check it first. We also use Postman to do the same. So all this, what is helping us is before we call anything, is it really working? Because in the documentation we have the annotations and also the link that we can use. So we use this to make sure we verify the existence of the API, but also its reliability and availability. While the developers are coding the front end using AngularJS, and the testers are doing automation using Protractor for the front end. Now, what Swagger does almost similar thing with SOAP UI, but its major strength is in the Java annotation, which is basically an extra layer of annotation. This is for MIFOS, if I can just flash that for you. I've just pulled that. Look at the annotations I'm talking about. This is a get, and it has these annotations. So what happens here is, this is for the get request, just I want to fetch information about something. And then we have this annotation called consumes. which basically is a JSON. This is a JSON. Then another one here, some of the things are too technical for my understanding. So with Swagger, they needed to have added one more notation that will specifically target the JSON. And when you pull out the link for the URL for the API, you can actually, you can create for you, it gives you a documentation of your API, like the get, the post, delete, and update. Now, whereas SOAP UI basically is for you to send requests, and then you get a response that you can visibly see for availability and also the accuracy of the data that is returned. So I try to do something very quick here because now time is still running out. This is how Postman looks like. If you look at the URL here, this is the server in the cloud, all the way with the request. What I want to do is get a list of users, right? So I can view the list of users in XML, I can view it in JSON, or I can just simply do a raw preview for the post. I can do the same for, let's say, if I change here, clients, I did clients. Oh, I don't have internet. All right. But if I did client, what I would see here, I would actually see a list of clients that are listed. I can also specify a parameter after clients where there is this question mark. I can put any value before the question mark, like let's say the ID of the client. So when I do that, it gives me a specific valid ID of client. Now this one is actually in JSON format. If you can see, this is a JSON format. Now, you use the same if you want. You can use SOAP UI, which I also have here.
To the right.
Right.
You're right.
There you go. Yeah, okay. So what I decided to do was to just pull something like off the head for you to have an idea to see. Now, SOAP UI with XML is actually much fun. When you bring JSON output, it becomes a little bit funny because when you actually add it here, what you're going to get, you're going to have these requests that are in different categories like the name, value, style, and up here it divides you the source and the endpoint, which is a connection to the domain name, to the server. Then here will be any parameters that you pass. And when you do that, you visualize your data either also in JSON, like that one is XML, and you do the same if you want, you can view that in JSON. So basically that's the basic that we're using it. Now, as I say, you can actually automate this process. The problem is if you check it into your CI, because of so many people making requests to the service provider, you're most likely going to run into the problem where something is broken. And that should not become a blocker for you. You can do that, you can do this if you want. On a project which I cannot tell you where I'm working, we are actually doing one which will be automated. And trust me, like out of every 5 days in the week, like 4 times is failing because of the data discrepancy, because there's some batches that are being run, really heavy batches for end of day and stuff like that. So then I have to like physically go there, check what is going on. But we actually did an automation to this. And what we did was simply a Cucumber JVM using Java and JUnit. So it looks like we're doing a unit test, but actually we're doing integrated contract testing. And we're testing some online interfaces and stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Any questions, comments?
So for this one, when I've done it before, where we have the contract tests in a separate pipeline sort of thing that gets triggered every hour. Depends on how often things change. And on the side, we've got the normal pipeline going live.
Yeah.
But as soon as things were read, and we are kind of dependent on this integration, on this contract, right?
Yeah.
So we actually stopped. Like we got the feedback and let our tests run, and it's important for us to know: are we green? Have we broken anything against our contract? So, but as soon it still stopped us from going live because it would have broken things when we did. Go live if that change.
So basically, they're saying you had a separate pipeline for it.
Yeah, a separate pipeline, but at some point it merged together before we actually did go live.
Yeah, that's another actually thing that can work. If you really don't want to be depressed, seeing red all the time. So just set up a separate CI, and then when it breaks, then it gives attention. And also where I'm working, we have a view light. Actually, I forgot to ask you what you're doing. We have a view light where the view light can go red if things are broken. We're using Blinky. I don't know whether you're familiar with it. There's actually an open source. If you search called Blinky, that's what we're using. It's open source. You have it in Git also. So we configured this using a Windows service. So what happens is we did configuration on our workstation. It keeps pulling the Jenkins. So when Jenkins is triggered to run the tests, when the tests are running, the light is turned blue. When the tests have passed, the light is green. So then everybody in their mind, they feel good. Yeah, we're doing some valuable work here. But when the light is red, everybody's face is, yeah. Interesting, right? CD. Yeah.
Do you reuse these SOAP UI scripts and tests for your performance testing?
Yeah. For the what?
For performance testing your services? Do you do any performance testing of them?
Performance testing, actually, I've never used SOAP UI for performance testing, but there's a good tool out there you can use for performance testing. One of them is called Gatlin.
And there's JMeter.
Yeah, I think some of you might have heard this one. Gatlin.
What?
So you can use.
Oh yeah.
You can use Gatlin. I've never used that, but I'm sure maybe you can actually do it. But Gatlin is another fancy, nice tool that you can actually use for performance and load and stress testing.
Yep.
Now those three things are normally mixed up somehow, but they're different anyway. Yeah. And there are others. There are a bunch of others. I don't know whether Tosca has the capability to do performance testing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So I think SmartClear had Load UI, which is like commercial.
Yeah.
So I think you can take your SOAP UI scenarios and then scale up with Load UI. But it's pretty XD, like the agents. Load UI are pretty expensive.
Yeah, no, it doesn't come with agents, but SOAP UI has a load test runner that can run from command line without the need of the load UI heavy GUI front end.
I'm not sure how good it is. It's not really meant for it, but yeah, I know it does do it. Though.
Yeah, well, I was just asking because we have the identical stack that you have with Spring Boot framework, and we use Gradle and AngularJS with Protractor for the front end stuff, and we use SOAP UI exclusively for the functional, smoke, and performance tests.
Yeah.
They're managed in segregation and they're maintained in segregation, but it scales really well with on-demand instances running from a Jenkins CI server.
Okay.
Yeah, running those scripts, so it can scale quite well, and we use the community edition for the performance testing as well.
Oh, we use the community edition
for the performance testing because we get around the licensing issues of the pro versions when you're running it, in 10, 20, 50 different instances. We just couldn't afford it.
Okay. That's a good learning there. It's a good learning to explore that and stuff. Is it solving the purpose?
Yep. It's doing really well. The later versions of SOAP UI seem to struggle a little bit, especially the Ready API.
Yeah.
They keep putting out new versions, but it's very unstable. And SOAP UI has always had a lot of memory issues where it just keeps sucking so much memory. You've got to pre-allocate 8 gigs in Java just to keep it running.
Yeah.
And once your suites start getting quite big, I'm talking maybe 400 or 500 tests, it tends to break down a bit. But yeah, we get good reporting from the pro version through our CI, and get good reporting locally, and the community edition works really well for the performance stuff, and I manage them completely separately. Yeah, no, it's good, and it's a cheap option as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we just run one license on our CI.
Yeah.
And one locally.
Yeah, for low budget development, I think open source, there's quite interesting tools out there actually for open source, where you don't need to pay any money and then stress very good.